Busy Business IT. Today, I wanted to share with you some of the ways that cyber criminals can break into your business using some pretty simple techniques to gain full access. So, a little bit about me, real quick, for those who don't know. I don't mean to blow my horn, but I just want you to know who you're talking to. I've been doing this for over 30 years in cybersecurity, information technology. I serve as a mentor to the ASCII community, which represents over 1,200 IT companies. I am in an active partnership with the FBI through InfraGard, and I'm a husband and father of two, and I have a real passion in helping protect businesses. Um, so, this is an old slide. Cybercrime costs the world about is estimated to be costing the world about $10.5 trillion. Well, that number is going to jump dramatically. And the reason for that is the SEC is now requiring all companies public companies that experience a cyber attack to file what's called a report. I believe it's an 8K report that basically details the damage, if they paid a ransom, the costs that have went into that have been associated with these breaches. So it's been pretty dramatic as far as all of a sudden we're starting to get some very clear information. As a matter of fact, September 5th, this report came out, and now, this regulation has come into full requirements. There are some secondary things that'll hit by December. We're going to get more and more detail about how these threat actors behave. And so companies that have normally been able to hide behind not reporting everything that's needed to be reported are going to be required to do this. Generally, this is going to be a good thing because we're going to start to expose some of these threat actors to sunshine, and that's going to be a very good thing. But at the same point, you still have to realize that this is going to, these guys aren't going to disappear anytime soon, especially when we're talking about that much money out there. It's estimated, by 2030, that 10% of the world GDP is going to be lost to these types of thieves. And, I always think about what would happen if you were operating with 10% less than what you have currently. And that's what we're here to stop it from happening. So I want to start with a story. This isn't really a fairy tale. This is a real one. A client, I was referred to somebody who was having an issue, thought they possibly could have, that they might have been breached. And so what happened was, they were a construction company. They had 20 seasonal employees. They had 5 full-time individuals. Architectural. They had some architects on staff. They were serving, as they told me, the 1% of the 1% of their clientele. They paid cash. They didn't really have anything. And so, but the owner his email had been hacked 3 times, and he basically had ignored it. He reset his password and said, "What's that going to hurt? No big deal." Well, what happened was, when they got in there the last time, they were able to hack into the bookkeeper's email. And part-time bookkeeper working on a couple of different projects. But what happened was, they were able to get all of the employee information and the PII and the PCI data. That automatically triggers a New York Shield Act. Just initial expenses between an attorney and a breach coach. A breach coach and having an incident response. This small company was looking at around $50,000 just on that data alone. But on top of that, because were they able to get out of QuickBooks? Well, even though they weren't running credit cards through QuickBooks, they were running their payroll. And so they got all the employee data that was out there, all of their names, their social security numbers, email addresses, sensitive data that can be used to exploit their identities. And that has to be reported in New York State through the New York State Shield Act. On top of that, they were able to get into their Dropbox account. And in the Dropbox account, they really hit the mother lode. What they were also able to do was get all of their clients' wire transfers. Since they weren't taking credit cards, they had all their bank information to get into their systems to take, so they had access to their bank accounts. One more thing, because of the QuickBooks, they also had all the clients' address information and emails as well. So when you look at a report, these guys, there are some initial expenses that come up in an incident. Where look, if you have 100 records, this is from an organization I call that's eriskhub.com, and they have a breach calculator. Now these calculators are not perfect, but what they can give is a snapshot of potential risk. You may not hit every marker, and this isn't an exact number just because there's fluctuations. We have in there possible class action lawsuit, and if you have the right attorney and the rights and the players are on the other side are a little bit more understanding, that may not be the case where you're looking at as much of an expense, but do you want to take the chance? So you're looking here, for 100 records, you're almost at $500,000. 500 records, you're really only moving up between the 100 and 500 about $14,000. And then when you go to 30,000 records, it's almost a bargain, comparatively. If you look cost per record, it goes from, 500, 1,000 down to $30. So, and the reason for that is there's some hard upfront costs that every business reaches through a cyber breach. So there, we have some fixed costs that are involved here. So I want to talk about two of the more public thefts there, where we have the perfect heist to steal millions. And one of my favorite movies is Ocean 11. I always love heist movies. They're great. They always get great looking people to do this. I even loved this thing as a kid. I love the music, ba-ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. Or I for those who little sleeper movie called The Heist. That's also another one. We also have Hogan's Heroes. It was all about deception. All these movies are about getting somebody to look the wrong way and focus on something else. And that's classically what it's there. And sometimes, and every one of these, they're always like a hero. They're always feeling like they're righting some wrong. So, we got like with Ocean's 11, you meet the dream team. You got, the George Clooney. You've got Matt Damon, and you've got Brad Pitt, and they're all together, and they're doing this amazing job of between the three of them, and they're able to target the Mirage, and the MGM Grand. They plan to steal about $150 million, bypass state-of-the-art security. They get a contortionist in there. They've got everything. At the end of the day, they assemble a team, they plan the heist carefully, and they execute with precision and coordination. And they speed off in bright red cars at the end of the movie because that looks best on camera. And the plan is flawless, and they, everybody's happy except for the people who've lost money, or the insurance companies who've had to pay the claim. We always say, well, that's fiction. You're not going to be able to get that Cracker Jack team out there to do this. You need, but we've recently, because of these filings, because of these, these 8K filings, we're learning that organizations like the MGM Grand, as of September 7th, about September 7th, they suffered a breach, and they weren't the only ones. Caesars also reported that they had suffered a breach, and Caesars ended up paying a ransom of about $15 million reportedly through their 8K filings. That's what they're reporting. It wasn't by like George Clooney and all these, these super movie stars. It was by a bunch of ragtag kids between the ages of 19 and 22, reportedly. Well, maybe not the Brady Bunch, but maybe this group of ragamuffins back in the day. But what they really are, in all seriousness, is a group called Scattered Spider. As a matter of fact, before this incident, they were already on the radar. CrowdStrike did a report that, that they basically, what they do is they conducted targeted social engineering campaigns primarily against firms specializing in customer relationship management. And they were able to harvest MFA codes through these types of social engineering. And part of the scary part about Scattered Spider is we don't know what their goals are. We don't know if it's just for money, or if it's for political gain, or if it's just to embarrass large corporations. So there's a lot of different things. Sometimes when you're dealing with a criminal who just wants the money, that's actually, in the scheme of things, it's better because they were logical. But when you deal with somebody who's mission oriented, somebody who's looking to become a martyr, these guys can be very dangerous. Especially in the when they have political motivations as opposed to economic ones. So let's just talk about how this went. So Scattered Spider, the way they were able to do both the MGM and the Caesars Harrah's is they went onto the LinkedIn websites of both companies and they looked for people. When they recognized somebody, they called their help desk. They asked for a password reset. Once they had that, what they did then, because they're really good at social engineering, so you're like, well, they have to be good social engineers, and so they did have put together their team. They outsourced it, just like you would outsource a paycheck company or a cleaning crew. There was a company out there on the dark webs called Black Cat Alpha, and what they do is they write really great, in their world, really good criminal software to be put in here. And so because they had access to the machines, they were able to download this. And then Black Hat went ahead and their team went through and did all the rest of the work, behind the scenes. And so what did they do? Well, they basically, after calling the help desk and they found the LinkedIn account and they changed the password, things really started to go south for both companies. The hackers say they stole 6 terabytes of data from MGM Caesars and reported to have sensitive data of millions of guests who've vacationed at the facilities. If you have a loyalty card, you're required to have, any of these casino loyalty card programs, you got to give them your social security number and your driver's license because you could be having winnings. The IRS wants a piece of that. And because of that, all that information is out there. These people are really victims at a very large scale. We don't know exactly yet how many people were affected. MGM was down. This was 5 days. This was from last week. MGM is claiming that they're up and operational, but they were down for 8 or 9 days. That affected 30 hotels and resorts around the world. Rooms were locked out. People couldn't get into like the hotels and the casinos where everything was shut down because they'd gotten onto about 100 virtual servers and had encrypted everything. And because of that, what was I going to say? Because of that, they're lucky that there wasn't a fire or something, and there wasn't tremendous loss of life. Caesars did pay $15 million in ransom. There is question and speculation whether MGM has also paid a ransom, but we'll see what that happens in their filings. But overall, the customer count was, it was over 90 hotels and gaming resorts, and it cost millions of dollars. Both stocks have had downward trajectories because of this, and they're going to be spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to fix this mess. As a matter of fact, both of these companies have been audited, and they were found to have incredibly low scores as far as cybersecurity was concerned. But at the end of the day, and that makes sense because at the end of the day, what happened? Well, there were no high tech skills used. All they did was they went on LinkedIn, they searched there, they grabbed a user, they made a phone call. And so there were no getaway cars, no Danny Ocean and the crew, just a 10-minute phone call. And you're like, well, that's great, but how would that affect me? So here's something that people can buy right here on eBay today. This is, you can go on here and you can grab, company apparel. It's sold right there. So we've got, the City of Tampa Water Department. I've got Verizon. Here I've got a Con Edison shirt, which is a local utility to me, and somebody puts that stuff on, puts that clothing on them, and then at that point, they walk in with a clipboard and maybe a lanyard, and they can pretty much go. I mean, hey, they show up at my door, and they have the right attitude. It's pretty hard to challenge them because they can con their way through a whole building with no problem whatsoever. So if this can happen to my business, what can we do about that? What are the options? So one of the things, that I wanted, at the end of this is there are tools here. Obviously, you got to train your employees and so forth. But if you don't feel like you're confident, you don't feel like, hey, I could fall for some, I'm not buttoned up. I'd love to invite you to have, a 15, 20-minute call with me. Here, here's the booking link. It's booking.a2zbusinessit.com. Have a QR code right here. And, we can go through and we'll ask you some questions to your business. It's confidential. And that's free. What we're trying to do is find out if there is issues that are there, because we don't want you to have the same issues that happened to the bigger companies. And let's face it, the only reason we know about them that now is because they're being forced by law to expose that. And we know that the devastation that happens out there, the numbers that I share, are only a small percentage because of lack of reporting. And small businesses are even greater targets in these larger corporations because they don't have the walls of security that these other big large companies do have. So anyway, I look forward to working with you. I look forward to reaching out and talking to you. So I thank you very much for your day. And I hope this has been of help to you. And that's about it. So you guys all take care. All right. Thanks.